Welcome, Drink with James, episode 154. We are sweating it out, people. I am in a sauna. So one of the side effects of having an office with beautiful natural light is when it's 94 degrees in New York City and you have one tiny air vent blowing AC in, that your office becomes a greenhouse. And while I'm sure my snake plant is very pleased to be in this tropical environment, I am sweating my ass off, which is why I'm drinking a Negroni today instead of just drinking instead of just drinking whiskey. It's over 90 degrees. There's two things that's difficult for me to do. It's hard for me to drink straight whiskey over 90 degrees, and I don't wear a suit when it's over 90 degrees. Those are two hard and fast rules that I try and live by. Today I was a guest on Christy Keene's podcast, the Mommy Influencer podcast, and I was talking about something that I think we haven't talked about in a bit, but I think is really important. And that's the idea of like, who is your customer in this, right? Like, I think as an influencer, as you progress and as you start doing brand deals, you start thinking about the brand as your customer, but actually the only way that you're able to make money is through your following, and you are selling access to your followers. That is the brand deals you're doing. They are buying access to your followers. They don't actually really give a shit about you. They want you, they're using you to get to all of the eyeballs and all of the people that you potentially influence. And so, to have a future in this and to have an account that continues to do well, you have to focus on your audience and make sure that you are servicing them and keeping them happy. And I just think for a lot of influencers, especially people who are complaining about reach, complaining about the algorithm, they're not growing, all of this, I think that like part of the problem is that you stop thinking about what you can do to keep your audience happy and engaged, and you start focusing too much on what you need to do to get more brand deals and make more money, go on more trips, get more free shit, whatever it is. Once your focus shifts and you stop waking up every morning thinking about what content can I create that my audience is going to connect with, and start thinking about, shit, I got to answer that brand email, I have to do this, I got to do this shoot, I got to shoot this campaign, and then I got a flight this afternoon, and then 2 events. Like, that shift is super important, because for your audience, what it feels like to them is that you don't really care about your content anymore, right? And so that every piece of content that you're producing is less and less valuable for that audience, because it's not for them, it's for you, and it's for your brand partners. And slowly they stop liking your photos, and then your photos stop getting served to them, and then all of a sudden you wake up and you have 12% reach and you're fucked. And so I think for everyone, if you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling like you're not growing, I encourage you to take a week, take 2 weeks, take a month, don't do any sponsored posts, step back and think about creative ways to re-engage your audience. Think about non-sponsored content that you can create that is going to add value to their life, and try and keep those people happy and invested in what you're doing. You think about growth. Again, if I was trying to grow my account, I think my focus would not be finding the next follower, but retaining the last follower that I just got. And most influencers are not thinking about, how can I retain followers? Because every day you get new followers no matter what, and every day you lose followers. So again, there are 2 ways to gain followers. You can lose less so that the followers you gain are a net positive, or you can go out and try and gain more followers. But again, I think this mindset of like, once you have a follower, forgetting about them and just thinking about the next one, and just thinking about getting the next follower and getting the next brand deal, is where a lot of people's content just starts to become less and less interesting. And I'm hearing from just normal people more and more now, just that like, they're feeling like maybe influencer content is getting a little boring, it's too sponsored. That is a huge problem. If that is the trend, and the trend is towards this stuff being uninteresting, the entire industry can disappear very, very quickly. And so y'all have to stay focused on your audience. And yes, a lot of what we talk about in this show and what we'll continue to talk about in the show is how to work more effectively with brands, because we're trying to run businesses here. We're trying to make money. But don't forget, the only way you make money is through your followers. Unless you're a photographer or something like that, doing some content creation and being paid for that. If you are selling access to your followers, you need to be hyper-focused on keeping those followers happy and engaged and investing in their livelihood. I mean, look at Four. We have 80,000 influencers on the platform. I don't make a fucking cent off influencers, and we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars over the course of our company to create tools for you guys, which we don't charge for you. We don't charge you for. Why do we do that? Because without influencers, we can't make money. We are selling access to influencers, and we are selling tools that make it easier to find y'all. So we need to keep you happy because you are the supply side of our business. And so we spend a lot of time, I mean, we're in the 154th episode of this. Again, this is not for my own health. I'm not just doing this because I'm a fucking nice guy. I'm not that nice of a guy. We do it because we understand that influencers are the asset that we are selling, and that is how we make money. And so we need to invest in keeping you happy and making sure that we have a great relationship. Think about your following in the same way. It can completely change the way you go about your day, the way you think about content, and hopefully re-inspire you to focus on what got you here in the first place, which is being able to create content that people want to consume and is educating them, inspiring them, or entertaining them. End rant. Let's go on to the questions. So, question number one is, what did I think of the Fashion Ambitionist's surprise proposal? I'm not really here to comment on the actual proposal. And I know there was a lot of outrage over FTC compliance and whether or not she should have disclosed the brand partnership she did. I don't think that's what people were actually pissed off about. If you look at what they actually got, it was equivalent to $1,000 of value. They really didn't get that much sponsored content. I think what people were pissed about was they felt like idiots. I think people don't like to feel like they're a fool and they got played. And I think right when that broke, that it was happening and the whole internet was looking at it and watching, they were super invested and they felt like they were watching something that felt, interesting or funny or sweet or whatever. And then when they saw the deck, they realized they were potentially part of a big ploy, that they got tricked. And nobody likes getting pranks pulled on them. Nobody likes being tricked. Nobody likes being made a fool of. I think that was where some of the backlash was it's like when you retweet or post a photo that ends up being fake, and people are like, oh, that's a fake photo, and then you feel just kind of stupid because you feel like you should have known better, but you got caught up in something. So I feel that too. I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, this, I put it in our Slack channel. I was like, you guys watching this crazy proposal wedding thing happening in real time on Insta stories? And then I saw the deck 10 hours later and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of feel like an asshole now. I think what is interesting though, and what I think about more and more on the internet when this kind of stuff happens, is that when the mob turns on you, it gets really, really ugly. Do I think what they, the whole thing was a little uncomfortable? Yes. I think in the end, especially with that deck leaking, the whole thing felt a little disingenuous. But do I think that they deserved the amount of shit that they got? Absolutely not. And I think that what scares me and what should scare anyone who puts things on the internet is that like when the mob switches over and decides you suck, they can just like absolutely ruin your life for no good reason. And I've seen this happen a few times, and like I participated in it as well, like tweeting that someone's terrible or whatever, just like piling on to something. And it feels kind of good, and like it feels like you're watching this car crash, right? You're like literally the internet is like ruining somebody's life in real time, and like as a human, that is something that you're like kind of like drawn to, and is a probably a flaw in our like makeup as humans. I think about like what would it be like if it was me on that, like on the other end of the mob, and like regardless of if she knew or if she didn't, she looked miserable when she got married, and I'm sure the whole thing was ruined for her and fucking sucked. And if that was the internet's goal, like congratulations. And look, you can be like, hey, they did it. They like put their thing out there, and like they are, you know, if you're gonna have a wedding on Insta stories in real time, you open yourself up to that, and like probably why weddings shouldn't have pitch decks and they shouldn't be that public, because like if any day should kind of be private and be about you and someone else, it, I think would probably be your wedding day. So again, I can see a world in which they brought this on themselves by kind of making it so public, but like as a collective, as the internet, like do we feel good about that? Do we feel like good that everyone shit all over them for like 3 days and was like hand-wringing and like really, it felt like people were really happy when they found out there was a pitch deck, because it was like, fuck them, they suck. Like these good-looking, successful people, I knew they sucked. And like, you know, you saw she removed Goop from her profile, from her bio. Goop's PR had to put out a statement, say that they were launching an internal investigation about the way that she went down doing this wedding. And like, what if she didn't know? And like, you know, her now husband just planned this. Like, this sucks. And like, everyone is like so stoked to be like, these people are terrible. And we don't know them. And so like, I am trying to be a better person and be a better steward on the internet. And so when I see these kind of mob things happening, I try and generally just like stay out of it, because one day the mob will come for me, I'm sure. God knows the amount of shit I've said on this show. I'm sure somebody will dig it up one day and I'm gonna be made to look like some big asshole, and I hope on that day y'all come to my defense and don't pile on. Because these are people's lives, you know, and like whether or not they suck and they're shitty people, I don't know. I don't know these people. But I don't think someone deserves to have their lives ruined over the internet because they decided to have a fucking wedding on Instagram. I don't think that is really like an appropriate response. So that is probably all I'm going to say about that wedding. Question number 2, speaking of pitch decks, what should go in a pitch deck? Should influencers be sending pitches to brands? I think we answer this question, you know, every 6 months or so. And so for y'all who aren't, you know, haven't gone back to episode 70 or whatever, I'll answer it again. Short answer, absolutely. One, you should just get better at pitching yourself. You can't, in life, you can't just sit back and wait for things to come to you. I mean, that's like, I don't even think like Rihanna's doing that, right? And like, we're not Rihanna, but I'm sure she is proactive in going after the things we want. And that's the other thing, it's like, if you're an influencer and you have a following, you have an incredible opportunity to use that following to do things that, if you didn't have that following, would be impossible. To work with your dream brands, to do your dream collaborations, to help people that don't have the voice that you have, to shed light on on causes and charities or whatever it is that you're passionate about, you have the opportunity to do that with a following. And if you're not doing those things, you're not taking an active role in shaping what your professional life looks like, then you're just a passenger. You're just like a tourist in your own life, which is pretty fucking boring. So I couldn't fathom having a following and not proactively pitching brands, because to me it shows a lack of creativity. Because if you're creative and you want to create things, then you've got all these ideas. And if you're an influencer, you probably love brands. So you should be thinking, I love this brand, I have an idea for them. And I think that what you'll find is by putting stuff out there and by proactively pitching, one, it just like gets that muscle tone of learning how to pitch and learning how to talk to brands, and your ability to sell something in your life, like that is absolutely fundamental to success in any role. Whether you are, internal and you're working at a brand and you're doing marketing, or you're an influencer, or you're, a stay-at-home mom, your ability to sell is absolutely essential to success, right? Because convincing someone to do something, whether it be to, listen to your suggestion and what the marketing plan should be, or work with you on a campaign, or get your kid to go to bed on time, all of that is sales, right? And so you have to practice it. And it is easier, obviously, to sell when people come to you, and that's the comfortable thing, because you don't have to put yourself out there, because someone's already coming to you and they say, I want you, and then all you have to do is negotiate price. That's not selling, that's negotiating. But going out and proactively saying, there is something I want to put into the world, there's a brand I want to work with, there's something that I want to do, reaching out to that brand, getting them on board, seeing it through, I mean, that should be the kind of work that you're going after, not sitting around waiting for someone to pay you. This, whatever y'all are experiencing right now, if you're an influencer and you've got a following, like I remember back when I had a Tumblr following and I called my mom and I was like, I felt bad because I had a full-time job and I kept taking time off to go on these trips and to like, duck out for these experiences. And I was like, I called my mom and I was saying I was worried about my long-term career and, should I be turning more of this stuff down? And she was like, moms are always, they always know what's up. She was just like, this won't last forever and you should absolutely say yes to everything right now, because there will be a point in your life where you're either not getting these opportunities or you're not able to take them anymore. And as an influencer, I think you have to understand that if brands are reaching out and everything's working and you're walking around and you're thinking you're hot shit, like that will not be constant. Nobody is just successful for their entire life. Even the most successful people in the world, look at Steve Jobs, if you've read his biography, like a lot of his life was shit and a lot of it was like failures. And so when things are going well, you have to capitalize on that, because it's not going to be there forever. So if there's a brand you've always wanted to work with or a project you've always wanted to do, and you're just waiting for that brand to reach out to you so that you can do it, I think what you'll find is you will wait for your entire life, and then the moment will pass and you'll never get to do it. So I would say you should absolutely be pitching, and I understand I didn't answer the question about what should actually be in there, but the pitch deck, what you put together, isn't as important as getting the brand to respond to your email, get on the phone with them, passionately talk about what it is, and then they'll kind of ask you for what you need. What's it going to cost, all of that. It's good to have all of that kind of tightened up, but the pitch deck shouldn't be something that the brand can just say yes or no to. It should be something that gets them to get on the phone, and then you try and close them on the phone or in an in-person meeting. No deal is ever going to be closed by you probably just sending an email and saying, here's what I want to do, and then saying yes or no. So question number 3 is, Instagram just said that they're going to put ads on the Explore page. What are my thoughts there? I mean, look, Instagram would put ads on your fucking forehead if they could. they're going to put ads everywhere. I'm surprised they didn't put ads in Explore a long time ago. I personally don't use Explore that much. I think in talking to most influencers, Explore is not as valuable as it used to be, certainly. It used to be like, if you get on that Explore page, you'd gain thousands of followers. Now it seems like you can get a lot of reach and you can get a bunch of engagement, but that engagement and that reach isn't necessarily converting to a following like it used to. So it'll get harder to get onto the Explore page, but it gets harder every day to get onto the Explore page. And I think if anything, it's another example of why, as an influencer, you need to diversify. You need to diversify your following. You need to diversify your revenue streams. Again, like, to use a startup term, no viable business can have a single point of failure. Meaning, if one thing changes and you don't have a business, you're fucked. So if your single point of failure is that 100% of your revenue comes from Instagram and it's the only place where you engage with your audience, and then if you also understand that it is literally impossible for Instagram to, for the next 10 or 15 years, maintain its position in the marketplace and maintain its position in like pop culture and certainly its position in the marketing world, then if you don't diversify so that Instagram isn't your single point of failure, then you have no chance for a long-term career. I have 130,000 followers on Tumblr. Does that matter? No, it doesn't mean a fucking thing because nobody goes on Tumblr. So I have 130,000 followers who don't know their password to Tumblr anymore. Like, what does that do for me? It does nothing. I think with Instagram, if like some of the top 1%, big celebrities, influencers, things like that, and then like regular people get sick of it, which definitely can happen if we continue just throwing ads in their face constantly. I think it would only take, 5 or 10% of the platform abandoning the platform for it to very quickly roll downhill. And if you don't think that is going to happen one day, you are completely delusional. And again, think about your points of failure and make sure, something we think about internally at 4 all the time. What does it look like if Instagram disappears? How do we hedge our bets and our business against a single point of failure? Because you can't leave your entire life in the hands of a company that you can't trust, and you can't trust any corporation. So that is my quasi-answer to that question. That's it. Brian and I are in here sweating, so we're going to call it, and we'll catch you next week.